Huh. So I actually wonder if it's able to go to sleep. Oh, it did. Or it did for a split second anyway. G'day folks, Jordan here. Today with a Compaq. Not just any Compaq, this is a Presario 2266. One of the cheapest computers from Compaq you could buy in late 1998. So let's take a look at it. So yes, this is one of the cheapest Compaq Presario computers you could have bought back in late 1998 at the dawn of the infamous web PC era. And this was noted as such via the lovely interwebs and via the cable news network. You can see an article here on the Presario 2266 featuring the Cyrix M2 CPU, 64 megabytes of RAM, a 4 gigabyte hard drive, a 32-speed CD-ROM drive, and a 56K V90 modem. Now, what made this machine so cheap when it was new, let's get the ThinkPad out of the way because that's definitely not the part of this video. What made this machine so cheap was for multiple different reasons. First of which was the cost-cutting specifications, since this thing used a socket 7 motherboard, and as the article mentioned and aforementioned Cyrix M2 CPU, the performance was adequate for 1998 and probably would have done okay for the time, but definitely was not meant to hold up over a longer period of time. The major thing that actually drove the cost down was it was not sold with a CRT. You could have bought a CRT from Compaq, but of course that would have drove the price up. But had you have gotten a decent quality 17-inch CRT, you probably could have actually got this machine for sub $1,000 pricing, which would have been fairly competitive at the time. And of course, another thing that made this machine so cheap was Compaq relied on you to sign up for, I guess, their commonly provided internet service provider through the operating system to use on their factory supplied modem. We'll get onto that here in a minute. As this article mentions, one of the catches of this machine being so cheap was Compaq relied on you having a $100 manufacturer rebate you could sign up for 50 hours of Compaq Easy Internet access using GTE as your ISP. And after that, you'd be paying $20 per month. And Compaq really banked hard on this to try to keep the cost low. And I did imagine that some people actually did this back in the day. I'm sure that this would have been something that, for a new computer buyer, they probably would have signed up for something because they're primarily buying a computer like this to get onto the internet. That was the whole entire point. And thus, that's what was bundled with this machine when it was new, as of course it was the Internet PC, as you'll soon see when we start the operating system up. My particular configuration of the Presario 2266 was not equipped with a 300 MHz Cyrix M2, but rather a 225 MHz Cyrix M2. It still has the same 64 megabytes of RAM and 4.3 gig Seagate hard drive, and the familiar 32-speed CD-ROM drive, and everything else is basically identical. However, again, mine has a slightly slower CPU as it was optioned with probably when it was new. I can't imagine that probably would have drove the cost down any lower because I think that was probably standard equipment, and the Cable News Network website article probably had a higher spec version, as these things were configurable, presumably, of course, online, to have better CPUs, more RAM, bigger hard drives, even a DVD-ROM drive, and in this case, they offered an LS120 drive with your purchase, which is pretty interesting. As for standard features on this machine, we have a 1.44 megabyte floppy drive here, which is nothing fancy. I believe some people probably would have confused this for an LS120 drive just based on the sticker here on the front, but that's not true. That was a separate drive. Obviously, LS120 drives that were internal were usually reserved for laptops like IBM ThinkPads of the day. Of course, as I mentioned, the 32-speed CD-ROM drive is right there. And we also have a little bit of a cheat sticker here telling us about some of the little things about this particular model of Presario, mentioning that it has memory that is upgradable to 256 megabytes. We have 2 USB ports, although in this case it funnily calls them connectors. Way to go, Compaq, and way to go for the people who used to call them connectors rather than ports, rather. But I guess it kind of sort of works, I guess. I don't know. Open slot for an add-in card. This has 2 PCI slots and an open externally accessible drive bay. I'm not sure if they're referring to this right here, but they might be. And I'm not sure if that would be useful for a 5¼ inch floppy or some kind of low profile drive for expansion. I couldn't tell you for sure. On the right-hand side of the case, we have the indicator lights for power and hard drive access. This is the power switch, although it's kind of deceptive because it has a moon icon on it, but this was one of the machines of the 1990s that had the support for the Microsoft On Now feature in Windows 98. So this presumably would put the computer to sleep by default if configured as such in the operating system. There is a headphone jack on the front and your usual case badge that says designed for Windows 98. This has Windows 98 First Edition on it. Taking a look at the rear I/O on this computer, it's not exactly exciting. It's just fairly typical for the time period. Although, interestingly, there was an option for an Ethernet port, but this machine does not have that option. It just has the modem. Maybe that was on a higher end configuration, maybe like the 2275. I couldn't tell you for sure. Anyway, there is the VGA port for the integrated video. There are the two USB ports. There is a 15-pin game port there, in addition to the audio out, audio in, and microphone jacks on the sound card. There's the PS2 keyboard and mouse ports. There is the 9-pin serial port there, as well as the parallel port. And up above the motherboard, you can see the two expansion slots, one of which is equipped with a factory 56K V90 modem, and a free PCI slot to do basically whatever you wish. Now, what's interesting is the power supply situation. Let me just fix the lens here. As you can see, this has a power switch on the back, which is fairly common for any kind of regular old computer that you might build yourself. But in this case, this actually is a hard power switch, which is very interesting for a machine that had the always on feature from Windows 98, the on now feature. I meant to say that first, but whatever. Anyway, and this actually has, I believe, an AT power supply, which is very unusual. I mean, it's not very uncommon for a socket 7 motherboard, but it's very unusual for a 1998/1999 computer to still be equipped with an AT power supply and still have support for sleep functionality. So this must have some crazy software stuff going on, or it's just got very special or particular hardware that was designed for that capability. I couldn't tell you for sure, but that's what it has. And interestingly, as you can see, it still had the Compaq quality assurance seal. I have since broken it because I had to get in here to check to make sure nothing was critically wrong with this computer before I powered it on. And indeed, it's fine in there. It's a little dusty, it needs cleaned, but otherwise it's actually not too bad. But yes, this was actually sealed when I got this computer. So everything that's inside is all original. And you'll soon see all the Compaq labels once I take the cover off, which we will do right now. Taking the case off is as easy as taking out these 3 Phillips screws on the back of the case. And of course, if you haven't done so, you would have to slice your quality assurance label or find some careful way to peel it off with a razor blade or something like that to prevent from telling Compaq you entered your own computer to, I don't know, maintenance. But anyway, then it just slides back. You'd normally do this with 2 hands, but I'm not very smart. Plus, I'm obviously holding the camera, and maybe this will take 2 hands. Wouldn't that be unusual? Oh, well, I got it. There we go. So here we have the insides of the Presario 2266. So as I mentioned, this is a socket 7 motherboard from late 1998, early 1999. So as such, as you can see here is the venerable socket 7 itself. Again, this has a 225 megahertz Cyrix M2 CPU in this particular machine, and it's got a nice, decently sized heatsink, which would have probably been useful more on a early Pentium or Pentium MMX or something like that, which would probably fit pretty well because it's actually quite beefy. Down below that, we have the 2 PC100 RAM slots. This has a 64 meg DIMM. This machine, as it mentioned on the front, is expandable to a total of 256 megabytes of RAM with 2 128 megabyte sticks. And the chipset is a lovely SIS 5598. So not too uncommon for the time for something that had an AMD or a Cyrix CPU. Although that was pretty good for Intel as well, because socket 7 at this time was fairly universal. There is the CD-ROM drive. This is a 32 speed, as mentioned in the CNN article. This one still actually works, unlike the floppy drive in this case, which is a Mitsubishi floppy drive, original to the computer. In this case, it is completely busted, as you'll hear when we turn the computer on, because it actually sounds pretty bad. Below that, is the IDE hard drive. Of course, it's IDE because this was 1998. SATA hasn't really come on the market, and SCSI was too expensive. So this has a standard off-the-shelf 4.3 gig Seagate hard drive. This is the original hard drive. And this actually still has the original install of Windows 98 First Edition on it, with all the Compaq software still in place. Don't remember if I fully mentioned that earlier. I know that it's mentioned Windows 98 First Edition, but yes, this still actually has its original installation on it, which is kind of crazy. Unfortunately, I don't have the quick restore discs, but maybe those will be sourced someday, and I can finally restore this machine back to factory condition. But as of right now, it's still got all the original owner's guff on it. I have cleaned off quite a bit of it, but it's still not perfect, as you'll soon see when we boot this machine up. And I've left some stuff on there for the sake of the video, of course, but there's probably going to be some more stuff I'm going to clean off in the near future. Conveniently on the motherboard there's a CR2032 battery, which by 1998 was, of course, fairly common. Don't know if we can, yeah, there we go, there's autofocus. So here are the two PCI slots, and as you can see, one of them is equipped with the factory modem. This is just your standard Rockwell modem, and there's the Compaq sticker denoting that. I'm not sure what kind of expansion bus this is. Obviously, it's got to go direct to the CPU, and there's the Compaq spare part number for this backplane. Otherwise, the only real notable thing that is inside of this case is the power supply, and this is what really gets me kind of intrigued and confused at the same time. So this is a standard high pro power supply. What was the wattage on this? A 74 watt power supply. So very high performance. It's got the one lone fan, which blows, or I think it actually sucks air in from the CPU and exhausts it out the back. So yeah, all the hot air from the CPU goes right into the power supply. Great design, Compaq. But anyway, if I can get in here, you can kind of see that's an AT power supply. But then you got this other connector over here, which also connects directly to the motherboard. And since this machine actually features like a soft power capability through this front panel here, as you can see, there's the cable that connects to the motherboard. This is not a hard power switch, and neither does flicking this switch on the back turn the computer on. It just sends power to the motherboard, and it waits for a request from this board to turn the computer on. So very unique setup. I'm not actually sure how many computers from the late 90s actually did this, or at least the ones that hadn't yet converted to ATX for the sake of cost cutting. Yeah, I know that Compaq mentioned on the front of the case that this is actually an expansion bay, and they actually give you screws for that functionality, but I'm not sure what you would fit in there. And regardless, I don't know how you'd actually connect it, because there's the power connector. How the heck are you going to shoehorn it underneath the power supply? Unless the power connector goes somewhere in there, I don't see any way you're going to be able to easily get it in there. So I can't imagine that was really ever used that much. I don't know about you, but that's about it for the inside of this machine. There's not much that really sets it apart from any other. I suppose that there might have been an option on a higher end configuration, maybe a Desk Pro with this case designed to have an integrated speaker. But obviously this is a budget model, so that doesn't have it, so no surprises there. But it does get me wondering, would they have put a speaker there? All right, so here we have the machine at its Jinx setup here, which is on its side because, interestingly, this top part here is bulged out. I'm not sure why. Maybe there was a different configuration of this that actually had something in there that actually made use of that little case indent. But anyway, it's all plugged in now. So we're going to go ahead and flip the switch here on the back. As you can hear, it did not turn on the computer. So we'll also turn on the monitor here. And bottoms up here, guys. We'll go ahead and switch back to the standard lens here. I suppose I probably ought to pull the blinds because it's going to reflect on the screen a little bit. Now, unfortunately, the battery in this is dead. I have yet to replace the CMOS battery with a fresh one. So unfortunately, what that means is every time I boot this computer up, because it gets stuck on the Compaq logo, I have to turn it off and turn it back on every time. So it puts a lot more wear on that hard drive than I'd like, but you know, it is what it is, I suppose. Once I get a fresh CMOS battery in here, then I can actually not have to worry about having to do a double power on every time I try to turn this computer on, imagining that it's locked up. There's the sound of that awful floppy drive. And as you can see here, this get drive A error, which is always fun. You can see CPU is a 6x86MX. So let's go ahead and take a trip in the BIOS here real quick. Actually, we'll show that off. There's nothing really fancy in here. I got to set the date and time, which is not a big deal. I can do that real quick, but I'll do that off camera. As you can see, they mentioned legacy diskette, which is really strange. I'm not sure why that is. What's also strange is they mentioned that Japanese media format, so I'm not sure why that needs to be in an American BIOS, but okay, whatever you say. So here's the hard drive. It's just your standard 4.3 gig Seagate drive. CD-ROM drive is there. Apparently you can cache the system BIOS and the video BIOS, which is interesting enough. Those are on by default, I believe. You can see 64 megs of RAM. What languages are actually in here? Quite a bit, actually. Anyway, so you can see there's the possible NIC that is not in this computer because there's no Ethernet port, but for some reason it's enabled. I'm not sure why. And there's the serial and parallel ports, floppy controller. You can enable only one of the integrated IDE controllers, which is interesting. And you can select how much video memory you want to take from the system RAM for your video. This is limited to a 4 megabyte video buffer. And I don't know if there's any other options that are unlocked when you upgrade the RAM from the factory equipped 64 megabytes. I have not actually tried that yet because I need to find a 128 meg PC100 stick. I can't speak today, obviously, never. But no, I have to find one or not to see if that's actually true or not. But anyway, so secured setup configurations, which is interesting that would be off. I'm not sure if that's got something to do with the Compaq software. And since we're running Windows 98, we're in DOS, so of course you can also configure your sound options in here if you really needed to, which I don't see why we would need to because generally the defaults are fine. And power savings, this is all for if you're running DOS, so I just put it on to disabled because I think Windows can actually do something about that. I haven't bothered to change until now, so yay, go me. And there's the quick boot mode, and you can then select what hard drive you want to boot from, boot priority, all that fun stuff. So with that having been said, I'm gonna go ahead and set the date and time now that I've saved changes and exited for no reason whatsoever, other than to say that I can. And then we'll get this thing booted up. And annoyingly, every time I have to go and boot this thing up, I have to press F1 for the minute until I change that floppy drive. It just sounds delicious. Fascinatingly, there's no Compaq logo on the boot screen. I'm not sure why that is, but in this case there is none, so I don't know. There's a nice delay there. I'm not sure why that is, but whatever. This is one of the software utilities that was left on this when I got the computer, this Lotus Smart Suite 97. You could just hear the hard drive just going to town. Yeah, once that loads, it basically is done starting up. So that's the one thing that taxes the system on boot up. So I'm probably going to uninstall it after this video, but we'll take a look at it here on camera. So now we're at the desktop of Windows 98 First Edition, and we'll do the obligatory right-click on my computer and click on Properties as if you're, somebody else. I have no idea who the original owner is, so whatever. You can see Cyrix instead with MMX technology. This is one of the later Cyrix CPUs that did feature that technology, but again, it was hampered by the rest of the system. And you can see the 4 megabytes of RAM that would normally say 64 megs there is hogged for the video RAM. So it's very poor performing video memory, which is not surprising to say the least, and whatnot. So we'll go ahead and take a trip into Device Manager here real quick. We'll show you all around. This has a graphics chip built into the chipset, so you can see 5598 is what this thing has in it, so don't know how big of a difference that makes. There's the old light-on CD-ROM drive, which actually has DMA turned on. Same thing for the hard drive, it also has DMA turned on. see what else we can take a look at here. Funnily enough, it actually found my monitor, which is not surprising for Windows 98 because it insists on always finding the monitor. There's the standard dial-up adapter, nothing fancy because it just uses the driver built into Windows. There's the ports. Interestingly, why is it gawking about APM support? The device is either not present, blah, blah, blah. Huh. So I actually wonder if it's able to go to sleep. Oh, it did. Or it did for a split second anyway. Put the hard drive to sleep anyway. Yeah, all you hear is the power supply fan. Huh. Well, that's bizarre. I'll have to look into that. Oh, well, I gotta... Ah. Who needs the system stability? Oh, that's weird. I pressed the power button. What the hell? Well, no kidding, it's not working. Huh. That's a new one on me. Oh. Oh, it's back. Okay. What the heck was that? I don't even know. Anyway, I know of a quick way to, start the hard drive back up, open the start menu. Yeah, all right, there we go. So I guess we're now back in action. I don't actually have to reboot the computer like I was thinking I was going to have to, but I will definitely have to look into that. I'm not sure why APM is not working, or at least not working properly. I mean, it's working, but not really all that well. So on now kind of works, but not really. Interesting. And this actually does have enough performance where you can leave the, what's the feature? Show window contents while dragging. There's enough feature, enough performance that I can actually do that. But as you can see with this active desktop enabled, it is quite slow to respond, which I guess is not surprising to say the least. There's actually an active desktop that we can enable real quick, which has a few different links on it to customize the desktop, service and support, and there's also an exploration zone. And as you can see, these are animated because this is basically an HTML page. I'm not sure if these will actually do anything, but we can try to customize my desktop here. Yeah, as expected, it can't open the site because it expects you to have an internet connection. And there's good old Internet Explorer 4.0. I'm not sure why that mute thing came up on the desktop all of a sudden. Can we turn that off? Okay, good. Yeah, we have volume controls. As you can see, this is the original installation because it's got these on-screen controls, which would normally be controlled by a Compaq keyboard. I don't have that Compaq specific keyboard that would have went with this thing, but I have something similar that has the easy internet access buttons and everything on it. So I doubt any of these are actually going to do much of anything. Maybe this one will, but... Oh, it actually kind of does, doesn't it? Huh, interesting. Secure e-commerce. What does finance do? Absolutely nothing. What about sports? Ah, it's a brightness control. I imagine that if you had a Compaq branded CRT, that would have actually controlled the brightness of the monitor. But again, I don't actually have one of the original keyboards that would have shipped with this computer, so that's probably not something I can access. The shopping button opens up Outlook Express, so that's interesting. What does this search button do? Nothing. What about this chat button? Nothing. Email, nothing. Huh. So this almost has some of the functionality. It does trigger some of the on-screen buttons, which is interesting to say the least. What about this HP button? Nothing. Printer button does nothing. Camera button launches a favorite program, which in this case was set to Microsoft Works, which, yes, was originally bundled with this computer, including Microsoft Money as well. And there's some other things that probably got bundled with this machine when it was new. But we're going to go ahead and set back the wallpaper, not the active desktop, so it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, let's go ahead and peruse the start menu here and see what's on this machine as far as the programs are concerned. So I'm just use the keyboard for this. It's going to be a little bit easier. I don't believe there's anything in here that's specific to Compaq. I think this is all just the Windows utilities. Yeah, back when the games used to be in the accessories folder, of course. We have AOL 4, but I think that's just a Windows 98 thing, but it was just brought out to more visible view by Compaq, or maybe the original owners actually used it. It actually has a couple of demos for the integrated sound, which is an Real A3D, as you can see in this case. So we're going to go ahead and use the race demo. So here's the racetrack demo. Use mouse or arrow keys to navigate. Use headphones for best 3D audio results. Make sure to select proper audio output device in sound card control panel, and then click the mouse to start. Huh, interesting. So it's not graphically impressive. Got some little things here, that Real 3D thing, the moving satellite dish. As you can see, the 3D on this computer is like not very good, hence why everything's so blocky. I think this is like Direct 3D 6. I don't know, maybe Direct 3D 5. I'm not sure what version this actually has on it. The other demo that this actually comes with is the B demo. I love that startup sound. That's actually kind of cool. This one looks a little bit more interesting because you get the beehive, and you can navigate this with the mouse if you so wish to use the mouse, but it's kind of easier to just navigate with the arrow keys. Ooh, that frame rate though. So yeah, not very impressive graphics, but again, the point is the sound. So honestly, for the time, this was nothing crazy, but it wasn't bad. It was certainly good for stuff you could download off the internet and listen to on your computer. So certainly better than nothing. So let's see. Compaq support host. This is interesting. I wonder what this loads up. The special version of Carbon Copy 32 software is designed for use by Compaq support technicians only. You may be asked to run this software by a support technician to help diagnose a problem. Interesting. I've never actually opened this. Oh, that is interesting. Huh. Fascinating. I wonder if this was an early form of, like, one of the Compaq support people could dial into your computer and do remote support. That could be interesting. I've never actually seen this. So it's waiting on a call from like Compaq. Interesting. Version 5. Very fascinating. I've never actually seen anything like that before. There's the infamous setup internet thing here for your easy internet access, which you probably would have been highly encouraged to run based on Compaq's interests. There's the Internet Explorer 4 update that was infamous in Windows 98 for having the permanent active desktop update that nobody really wanted, and got Microsoft in a class action lawsuit. Of course, that was the United States v. Microsoft Corporation lawsuit, if you ever wanted to look that up. There's the Lotus Smart Suite that was originally on this machine when I got it, which was not part of the original software install package, I don't believe. This would have been something previous. But it's got some interesting things in here, such as Lotus Word Pro 97, which we'll open up and take a look at here. We're just going to create a plain document. And I don't suppose we're going to just change any of the preferences. We're just going to leave it as a B. And here we have it. There's the Lotus Smart Suite 97 application, which has those really funky title bars that we're seeing in like Windows 95. And this is just your usual word processor. Nothing fancy. You get your font selection panel down here. Typeface size. You actually got colors, that's interesting. Bold, italicized, underline. Got some different heading styles, which is something that I don't think Word at this time actually had easy access to. And you got a built-in dictionary. So this actually has quite a bit of nice stuff in it. So could be a decently featured word processor. There's some other things in there too I want to take a look at. What was this? Freelance Graphics 97. Shows a ThinkPad on the splash screen. Oh, is this like a presentation thing, like a PowerPoint thing? Interesting. Let's open one of these up. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Huh. So this must have been the PowerPoint clone of the day. I don't know why they would have called it Freelance Graphics. That's really an odd name to call something that's, you know, making presentations or whatever. There's the slideshow button. Yeah. I'm not sure how you're supposed to proceed. I guess press enter to proceed. Interesting. Very interesting. What other things come with this utility pack? We got Screen Cam 97. That probably, I'm not sure if that's like a screen recorder or what. The only show and tell software for Windows 95. Yeah, this obviously would not have come with this computer when it was new. Lotus Screen Cam records all screen activity as well as your voice if your PC has sound hardware. To begin recording, click the record button. Really? Is this actually a screen recorder utility? I'd be impressed. Wait several seconds for initialization before recording. Click the stop button to stop recording. The stop panel will be recorded as part of your movie if you are recording screen activity. Click cancel now if you don't want to record. No crap, it actually is recording the screen. It's actually slowing down. Huh. Okay, good, I did actually take the documents off this thing. I would hope I did. Huh. How would you save something like this? It's in a .scm file. Interesting. Can I throw that in AVI? Yes, I can. Let's run on the desktop. Let's try test. Your video for Windows Movie will require nearly 17,812 kilobytes of disk space. You can reduce this size by choosing a lower frame rate or selecting the current view size if available, blah, blah, blah. Huh. Okay, maybe I'll actually reconsider about taking this off. This could actually be kind of a neat thing to play around with. That should open up in Windows Media Player, I think. Huh, and there it is. Well, how about that? You know, I'll give credit where credit is due. That does actually record the screen. I might have to see what's going on here. Have to see what the there's the one I just made. Huh. Definitely gonna have to look into that further to see how you configure that, because I know this computer is probably a hunk of crap, but I wonder if you can capture like a semi-decent frame rate. Probably fill up the hard drive really quick, but I wouldn't care. That'd be the best damn thing I'd ever seen on a late 90s computer. Anyway, there's Microsoft Works. I think it's Works version 4? 4.5. And I don't know if this was original to this computer. I don't believe it was, but, you know, whatever. Sure, why not? Run the task wizard. We'll do professional. And just use the default settings. And there we are. So there's Works. That works. Ha, see what I did there? Except the task wizard got stuck on the screen there. Good job. See what else comes with this thing, or what I got with it anyway. Okay, that's just the built-in Windows Online services, nothing fancy there. I think PeopleLink came with the computer when it was new. Let's open it up real quick. Let's see. To use PeopleLink, sign in. I don't have a login. Maybe that was like a... Well, it's got the Compaq logo. Maybe that was like some kind of instant messaging. Maybe that's what that was used for. All right. I think this came with, yeah, some kind of Quicken 98. I'm not going to bother opening that because we all know what Quicken is. Resume Maker probably wasn't on this machine when I got it. Ring Central Fax, I believe, was because of the fax modem in this computer. So that probably was what that was used for. That's just a help document. Look at all that crap that starts up. Oh my goodness. And then I believe WinZip 8 was added later by the original owner. There's also a duplicate of Quicken 98 down here for some reason. And that's about it for this machine as far as its software goes. So I don't know what else I'm going to do as far as cleaning it up or adding to it. I haven't really figured out what this machine is actually capable of, since, again, I've never really owned a Cyrix computer until now. I can't imagine that it's going to be too much faster than an original Pentium in some regards, because this machine, again, was already a really cost-cutting model by 1998 standards. And again, based on Socket 7, I can't expect too much out of it. But at the very least, it's still a fairly fascinating computer from the late 1990s and the dawn of the web PC, as you could say it is. But I think that's it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and shut this machine down. So I appreciate you all coming to watch, and I will catch you all in the next video. Aha, I see now. That's why the APM is not working, because usually the computer would turn itself off. Now it's expecting me to actually flip the power switch. Yeah, definitely I'm going to have to look into that one. Good job, Compaq, for thinking about that ahead of time. Oh, now it turned itself back on. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to look I'm definitely got to look into that.